Hi, my name is Patrick. I'm from Houston, Texas, and I currently live in Brooklyn, New York. I went to the University of Texas at Austin, where I studied history and religious studies. And right now, living in Brooklyn, I freelance for a living. My main work is in the realm of landscaping and gardening, so taking care and tending to plants in outdoor settings on rooftop terraces, backyards, front yards, window boxes, as well as taking care of indoor plants. And during the winter, I tend to pick up more moving jobs and floristry work while the gardening season is off for the colder months. And I pursue the performing arts at night, and I am a working stand-up comedian and improviser. And a funny thing about being a comic is that I go on stage every single night of the week and I perform in front of others, trying to connect with them and make them laugh. But what a lot of people don't know about me is that as soon as I get off stage, I'm one of the most anxious people you'll ever meet. I'm scared to talk to strangers. I avoid parties and social gatherings, and I shut down. And I think there's some confusion. I think people tend to think that performers are the most gregarious, friendly, outgoing, social people there are, but really I don't like being around people. And I think there's something to be said of the fact that when I'm on stage, I feel like I'm in control of that environment. I'm holding everyone's attention. I have the command of the room, and I get to, I guess, control how that dynamic plays out. Whereas if I'm just conversing with strangers in a party or social environment, then I feel like I don't know the rhythm of how that's going to dictate. I feel like people are judging me and how I interact. Whereas I guess the viewpoint of just an audience member is that they're just there to be entertained. And I think a lot of this originally stems from the fact that I'm kind of insecure with my relationships. My parents divorced when I was young in the fourth grade, and it really shattered illusions I had about family, romance, and basically having the glass ceiling pulled underneath me or the rug pulled underneath me, and just feeling like no one could be trusted and constantly having to be shuttled between my mother's and my father's place, relationships with other family members souring due to the negative dynamic of this marriage, and also the fact that I had to switch schools, move to different neighborhoods. I switched the home I was living in about 5 times over a 7-year period. So never feeling like I was fully a part of a community that I had ties to, and just feeling like I didn't know how to relate to others anymore because my life was no longer the you live in the neighborhood your entire life, you grow up with the same people, you go to elementary school, middle school, high school with the same people, you I don't know, you have friends in your neighborhood that you know throughout your entire childhood. Kind of just felt like I was just like out by myself in the world, which certainly helped me with my comedy, and I guess being able to have a boatload of experiences to tell stories from and turn, I guess, negative situations into a positive by finding the humor in it. But I don't know, it's made me very socially anxious, distrustful. I feel like even in romantic relationships too, like a lot of people are like, "Oh, you need to find your soulmate, you need to find your true love." But how can I believe that there's a soulmate if my parents didn't even last with each other, you know, beyond just like a brief marriage? And I've tried different things to try to overcome this anxiety. Like some people told me you just gotta like throw yourself in the fire, just like put yourself out there, put yourself in a party, social situation, and just go out there and start interacting with strangers. And if you do that, then you'll learn how to build your tolerance up to this phobia of yours, almost as if I was like taking a social vaccine, right? But no, that's never worked for me. I can remember countless parties where I showed up and within 5 minutes of arriving, I'm starting to sweat, I'm shivering, I'm overthinking. I feel like I'm starting to judge other people and feel like I'm being watched and processed a certain way. And there's been moments where I've literally ran out of parties and did like an Irish goodbye. Like I don't even tell anybody I'm leaving and I just peace out. And it's frustrating because some of these events, like it would be beneficial for me to go out there and be social. Like, and I'm talking about events where I'm networking with other comedians. I'm meeting with people that could potentially be clients or people that could give me work or business, but I just don't have the wherewithals to be able to engage with them organically. And it's really tough. I've also tried going to therapy, meeting with a psychiatrist in a one-on-one setting, processing childhood trauma, processing my behavior and how I feel in the present day, specifically and how I relate to my peers. And I've also tried medication, anti-anxiety meds, antidepressants, um, and I don't know, I've tried reading literature, going to online forums, trying to read testimonies and stories of other people that have experienced this similar dichotomy of feeling lonely in a room full of people, or especially, take a performer like a Robin Williams. Robin Williams, one of the best improvisers, stand-up comedians in modern history, but the man was very depressed. He had a substance abuse problem. There's clearly a part of him that felt very disconnected from himself, from others, and from reality. And I certainly feel like the age of social media hasn't helped at all in terms of allowing me to feel connected to others. I feel like social media adds this other layer of performance that comes to life, and I feel very weird about it. I feel like, oh man, like, am I even a real person unless I'm active on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook? Am I truly friends with someone unless we're both following each other on one of these platforms? Am I truly in a romantic relationship if my partner and I aren't Facebook official, you know, and constantly feeling like I need to live stream my life and post updates about everything that's happening? It just makes me feel like there's this technological undertone that has to coincide with any activity that I participate in. And it's weird. I feel like social anxiety as a phobia, it's more abstract, I've certainly had times in my life where I've felt claustrophobic, you know, or I felt afraid of heights, I'm scared to go on a roller coaster at Six Flags. And those feel much easier to explain than this kind of social phobia. Um, Especially in my family that's more traditionally conservative. I think there's in their understanding of like gender and masculinity, there's this idea of like, oh, you just need to toughen up, quit being so afraid, quit being so scared of everything. Just like show up and talk to people, why are you acting so afraid, And I just don't know how to respond to that. I don't know what to make of that rhetoric because I feel like it's out of touch with my emotions. Because I feel like whenever I try to just confront my phobia as a man, I end up leaving with an even more sour and bitter taste in my mouth. And I don't know, it's a physical thing too. Like, it's not just in my brain, like, my muscles literally start to hurt. I start to get the shivers. Like, this isn't some just emotional hurdle to have to cross. It's like a full body process of learning how to negotiate with fear, negotiate with trauma, and negotiate with kind of my understanding of identity. Because I feel like most of the time how we define ourselves is based on our understanding of how we fit within our greater social circles and how we fit in society. And so this idea of feeling disconnected from others, it makes me feel worthless. It makes me feel like not like I'm a real human being, you know? And it's tough. It's very, very tough. I'm grateful that we live in an age where talking about depression and anxiety, social anxiety, is more normalized. When I first started seeing a therapist early on in college, I was embarrassed to bring it up to my parents. I didn't want to tell any of my friends about it. And I felt like it was a sign of weakness, where actually it was a sign of strength looking at it in retrospect, because I was taking the initiative to ask for help dealing with an abstract issue that I couldn't really pinpoint the exact root cause of at that time, and meet with a professional that has a knowledge based on their understanding of foundational text, hundreds of hours of training experience, as well as working with a diverse range of personalities and people from all walks of life. And I found that it wasn't putting myself in the fire and putting myself into awkward party and social experiences that ultimately allowed me to reckon with and handle dealing with this phobia. It was really just speaking about the phobia openly. I've actually started to meet friends at parties when the first thing I talk about with them is, man, I really hate parties. I feel so awkward and anxious here. That brutal honesty actually has led to some pretty great casual acquaintances and friendships that I've met with people in social settings. Because if there's anything I've learned through my experience dealing with social anxiety, is that I am definitely not the only one. And you open up a lot of doors by expressing that out loud, because I think it's relatable. I think, again, tying back to the whole social media point, we're all supposed to act like we're incredibly happy, everything's going well for us all the time. So to be able to be the one to stand up and say, hey, I'm not doing well, I feel really awkward and uncomfortable right now, I think that allows other people to feel more comfortable around you. And I think authenticity is always the best foundation for any new relationship. But again, we're in an age of influencers. We're in the age of here's my business card. Check on my LinkedIn. I think in order for society to mend, especially a very polarized society we have right now, it's just to be very honest with each other and open with each other in real life. Don't hide behind the keyboard. Be true to your feelings, because ultimately we're all humans here. And I think if there's anything the internet and social media has taught me, is that people want real human connection. Like, even in the world of stand-up comedy, there's been a huge trend of moving towards more crowd work based content and material. Crowd work being you're a comedian at a show and you kind of have a spur of the moment back and forth with the audience member, rather than, and that being the source of comedy rather than prepared jokes and material. And I think people really like that, because you actually have to have an audience and presenter dynamic in order for that situation to occur. So I think people are seeking connection. They're really seeking that genuine connection. And that it reminds me so much about customer service jobs I've had in the past, where, you know, really what made the best experience as a server or a cashier is when I was able to connect with someone on a personal level beyond just taking their coffee order, asking them how their day was and being real about it. Being real when I asked them, not just giving the stock like, oh, I'm okay, I'm fine, I'm great. I think there's too much of that, because I think a lot of my social anxiety, it's not just a fear of meeting people, a fear of being at parties, a fear of how I present myself in a situation where I can't control. It's also a fear of of not being genuine, of a judgment I put on my own part about other people being ingenuous, and I think it's just overcoming that hurdle and just realizing that people will respond authentically to authenticity. And as I stated earlier, authenticity is the best foundation for any real relationship to happen. And I think ultimately, like, the lesson I've learned with handling social anxiety and handling any phobia at all, it's not about pulling yourself out your bootstraps, being a man, and just toughening up and dealing with it. I think it's a complex process of being open and honest with how you feel, realizing you need help, reaching out to appropriate professionals that have a background specifically with aiding people that are facing these certain phobias, and just being upfront and honest about it, not just with your family, not just with your friends, but also with strangers, because more often than not, a stranger could be very well feeling the exact same things you're feeling and dealing with the exact same things you're experiencing. So, phobia is an issue that is brought on collectively due to the issues that our society faces, but also coincidentally is solved by that same society. We are always stronger in numbers. You're never alone. So make sure that all your battles you fight, any phobia you deal with in life, you don't deal with it by yourself.